Welcome back to the Mastering Video Marketing Podcast. I'm Tony Reale, and today we're joined with a special guest.
Thanks, Tony. I'm Miles Anthony Smith, president of Why Stuff Sucks.
Absolutely. Miles, you've been a friend for a long time and also one of our clients, and we've been one of your clients. It's been a great ongoing relationship, and we've relied on you a lot to help us with some SEO updates to our website, and you've relied on us to help you with your video marketing. So I think we got a lot to talk about today. I'm excited to go over ways. You have a unique approach. We talked about on the podcast before about how niching down in a category of marketing is probably the best way for a modern agency to be. It's hard to just do everything. It's impossible to be good at everything.
The full service agency is almost dead.
Right. And so it's why we're both technically own a marketing agency, and yet we never step on each other because the things that you focus on are things that we aren't good at and don't want to be good at necessarily. So why don't you talk a little bit about Why Stuff Sucks and what kind of services you currently offer?
Yeah. So the impetus for Why Stuff Sucks is that things in business and certainly marketing do suck at times, but there is ways to get through that and to make it suck less. I specifically focus on SEO consulting. As you mentioned, I have a very specific niche that I focus on, and I don't want to do video marketing either, or other types of marketing that I've done before as well. So I've worked at a marketing agency and done lots of different things. But to your point, focusing specifically on one niche allows you to be an expert in that, but also that those niches are becoming broader and deeper every day. So it's really not going to be a challenge to stay engaged and find fun things and new things to do. So I found that with SEO, it's really more of a long game. Mm-hmm. And I really enjoy the fact that business should be about the long game and about building those long-term relationships. So I can help clients do that and build these long-lasting assets on their website. They're going to continue to generate SEO traffic for months and years to come.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned how the different avenues, video marketing, say back in the 80s, was fairly straightforward. Television and maybe VHS or something like that. I don't know. But today it's so, even when I first started Creative Edge, we didn't want to be a marketing agency originally because we felt we had to be too broad. We had to do web design and, all the other things that we just didn't want to focus on. We wanted to focus on our core competency of video production. And then fast forward to a few years ago, I realized, there's so much that our clients need help with when it comes to video marketing. We can be an agency that just focuses on that. And same thing for yourself. SEO for 10 plus years ago, people might have just considered, just Google ranking or whatever like that. But there's so much more to it than that. And there's so many different ways to incorporate that. You just in our interactions, I understand the general idea of ranking on Google, but there are multiple things that Google looks at when you're trying to rank. And why don't you tell a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's certainly become a lot more complex over the years, especially going back to maybe not the 80s because it didn't really exist back then, but certainly in the early 2000s, things have changed a lot. And a lot of people still think SEO is just about keywords. And so keywords are still an important part of SEO and what we do. However, it's a lot more than that. It's about readability and user experience, so much more. And so a lot of those factors are coming into Google and just are amplifying the complexities. And really what's difficult is to figure out what to prioritize first. With hundreds of different things you have to think about and be responsible for when it comes to SEO, ranking and otherwise, you really got to be able to zero in on those. And that's really why clients end up hiring me, is because of the experience that I have, both broad and deep. I can help them prioritize those things that are going to help them get results faster.
Well, and when we've talked about that before, you've helped me with a lot of the things that I didn't even think to look at on the website. It isn't just what's the copy on there. It's also how is the copy organized, and even your heading tags and all those things are so important to what Google looks at. What do you find that most clients where are the biggest areas that they just straight up are doing it wrong?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say, it really isn't writing the content. So most writers, whether they work inside an organization, maybe they're employed there, or maybe they're a contract writer, they're really thinking about those words. And words are still important, don't get me wrong. We need to write, and using keywords for SEO, but also write persuasively. But we need visual engagement features, and we need to think about the outline of those pages. So what heading 1, heading 2, heading 3, just like an outline would be structured, what should that be? What are our competitors doing? So let's look at the pages that we're trying to compete for that particular keyword phrase. Are they using videos and images, call-out boxes, italics, bold text? There's just some of the things you wouldn't think would really matter to SEO, but they matter to SEO because they matter to the users. And Google's all about the user experience. And their whole system is built on they got to keep selling ads. That's how they make money. And the only reason the ads work is because people keep coming back for the organic search results below the ads.
Now, what you're just talking about is like those things that Google looks for, like over the past 5, 10 plus years, the evolution of Google being able to actually crawl a website and detect the readability of a website and how a user, like, we talk a lot about artificial intelligence and how it's able to create new content, but like there's an artificial intelligence to the ability for Google to read a website the way a person would read a website. And so, it's beyond just the imagery and the content. It really has to do with the functionality of your website.
Yeah, and some of those things are visual, like we can see them on the page. Users can see them when they search and land on those pages. And some are behind the scenes, so some are more technical. And as Google has gotten more sophisticated with this stuff, they have different ways of measuring how the user experience is and how well you do at handling that. So there can be and usually are things behind the scenes that are technically holding you back, and you may not even realize it. Because again, this is becoming more technical, more complex, and it's not just about what you write on the page, but the code behind it and how that's built. So again, it's not that we should get frustrated or lost with how many things we have to keep up with, but there's an opportunity there to not only do this for Google, but ultimately help serve the best for the user experience.
Are there any trends in the past 1, 2 years, or even in 2023 that you're seeing are major shifts that people are perhaps not noticing?
Yeah, I would say first and foremost, keywords and links are still important. So if we rewind 10 or 15 years ago, I guess it's probably more like 15 years ago now, back in the old days, the Wild West, people would spam keywords. So they just would put a lot of keywords, the same keywords on the page. They'd even put them in like white text so they blend into the background. There was all different kinds of ways to do that. And they would also buy links from these link farms. So companies would have these vast networks of websites of low quality content, but through sheer volume of links from all those sites, they could get that and keywords, they could get these pages to rank. So my point isn't that we should go back to those old days, because that not only won't work, it will hurt your site, but the fundamentals are still the same. Using the right keywords in the right fields in the right ways that are going to help the user and not trick the user, and getting quality links from other websites pointing to those pages is still really, really important. So we can't lose sight of that first and foremost. Then you can add all those other things like we talked about, the visual engagement features on top of that, just to enhance that and make that even more likely that you're going to rank and rank higher.
Now, you and I have talked a lot about AI and how that's quickly becoming a tool that is both valuable and also perhaps dangerous if misused and can actually damage your website. So how do you incorporate that in both? What are you seeing people doing well, and what are you seeing people make mistakes with it?
Well, first and foremost, we shouldn't use ChatGPT or any form of AI to directly plagiarize, because the bottom line is that information comes from some database somewhere, might even be incorrect or outdated. And eventually, if they haven't already figured out, Google's going to be able to understand what is essentially plagiarized, even though it's from a database and not a person. So we shouldn't follow that. However, we can become better and better at giving good prompts to ChatGPT to help us come up with headline options, or like specifically meta title, meta description. Might be kind of a technical term for some, but essentially what that is the snippet of information that's in the search results when you type in a particular keyword. So that headline or title is called meta title and meta description. And why that's so key is because you need something that's unique that piques their curiosity or somehow draws them in to get them to click on your result over somebody else. So if you did all the keyword research right and you put the keywords on the page and get other people to link to those pages, but you don't have a really compelling meta title, meta description, none of it matters, because if you rank and they don't click to your page, you're toast.
Absolutely. We talk about that in our Video Pathfinder webinar from an ad perspective of like, if you have the most amazing ad and then somebody clicks on it and they go to a bad landing page, or even worse yet, just their home page, and they're like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do here. And then they just click back. You're not only wasting the money on that, but you're also damaging your ad reputation on, say, Facebook or whatever the platform is. And you could actually, first of all, get charged more for the clicks in the future, or you can just have your ad not run because they're like, this is a worthless ad. It's not actually effective. So yeah, those specific details, it's not just about ranking. It's not just about getting something in front of people, but it's also making sure that the entire system, the entire process is well optimized.
Absolutely. Capturing their attention throughout that entire process, from getting the initial click to getting them hooked on that page to taking some action that you want them to take.
Now, you are one of our clients for the short form content we've been producing, so people will be able to find that very soon on Why Stuff Sucks. In fact, when this podcast comes off, it actually might be already launched pretty soon.
Super excited about that.
I'm curious, tell me about your experience of this, because I know you've done speaking engagements, you've talked in front of a lot of people, and now you're recognizing the necessity of really being a content creator, even though that you might not genuinely consider yourself in that category. We use that, so it used to be like, I'm a YouTuber, I'm a person that just reviews stuff or dances in front of it, whatever it might be. We've talked about it many times that like almost every business really needs to look at themselves as a content creator today, because that's really where people are consuming information. I was reading an article recently that talked about how Netflix and YouTube has just switched over to being the more dominant. Like streaming video has now surpassed broadcast video just recently as the now dominant video platform. And so if businesses are not really utilizing these platforms for people to discover them, then they're just drifting away into the abyss. So I'm just curious, what is, for you as a person that isn't first and foremost a content creator, what's your approach, and how do you feel like it could potentially benefit your company?
Yeah, I think about, this is about branding. And if you think about, you go back to old school marketing, back in the days before there was the internet, branding is a long-term thing. It's something you invest in. So for me, I'm not expecting an immediate return out of this on my investment dollars directly from, let's say, services that people are going to buy from me, SEO consulting engagements or other products that I offer in my other businesses. So I'm making an investment in that because I know and I believe in the fact that people buy from people. So for me, there's an element of personal brand. Even for a corporate brand, there still can and should be some element of some influencer, somebody that knows the brand, breathes the brand, lives the brand, that people want to connect with. They want to hear from you. And if you don't have that, you're really missing out. You're, I can't think of the analogy, but it's a really big part of your marketing that you're missing, that people actually want, as opposed to the advertising that if you do it well, they want, but a lot of times they don't really want your advertising.
Sure. I feel like, we use the term, one term that I've been using a lot lately is lead cultivation. Like we know the term lead generation, it's said all the time, like, give me a lead, get their email address, get their phone number. Like lead generation is a huge business that a lot of marketing agencies just focus purely on. But I like to focus on the term lead cultivation. And what I mean by that, it isn't just straight up like, give me your email address. It's about getting, people that would be potential customers of yours to just know that you exist and know about you and be familiar of your existence, so that over time they start to see your face, see your company, see your brands, and whether or not they buy from you today or down the road, or maybe they see an ad eventually that pops up and like, I remember that guy's face. He offers a service, whatever it might be. That's lead cultivation. And that generation isn't going to come immediately. Isn't just, bam, I got an email address, I'm going to sell them something. It's, I'm cultivating the experience out there. And so I almost feel like that's the baseline for content creation today. Like you, at a bare minimum, if people are vaguely familiar, if they do a web search for Miles Anthony Smith, there should be something out there for them to find. We're not talking about going viral at this point. That's another level. And that might happen. You know, your content might be really well received and you might get millions of followers. Cool, that might happen. But even if it doesn't, you still have that baseline of there's content for people to come across you and get familiar with you. And I think that's really important because, you know, how can you expect anybody to get to know you if you don't have content for them to find you? I'm going to call out, there was a viewer. I'll be nice. I'm not going to call him anything derogatory or anything like that. But there was a viewer of our podcast that got into a heated commenting debate
Discussion.
with me, and I was trying to be civil throughout the whole process. But he asked me, he's like, you know, why are you suddenly giving me all this marketing advice? And in my mind, I'm like, I've been doing this for years.
Right.
When I started my YouTube channel, I was a novice, the most novice that you could possibly be, playing around with handy cams and building jibs out of old coat hangers. Like literally that's the most novice you could be because I didn't have a dollar to spend on this thing. And then now I've got hundreds of thousands of dollars of camera equipment and studios and all this kind of stuff. So it was a big growth process for me. But going from that to where we are, we got busy in the middle. We got big clients. We got $100,000 jobs. We got tons and tons of clients, some of the biggest brands in the area. And during that time, I wasn't creating a lot of content because I was crazy busy.
You're busy.
So in the recent time, I'm like, you know, I really do recognize the need to be getting out there and creating content. So now I've started in the past 6 months to be more consistent in my content creation. And so when somebody says, well, what do you know? Why should I listen to you? I'll say it. You're right. Why should you listen to me? And I need to have enough content out there for me to shoot for my audience to recognize the expertise that I know. I can sit down with a client. You're a client,
Yeah.
as we are of you. And I can sit down and tell you all the things and walk you through the successes that we've had and sell you potentially on our products or services. Great. But I still need to have that opportunity to sit down and do that sales process with you. You know, creating this type of content is how you get the other people that you don't have the opportunity to sit down with to know about you and to know that and develop that reputation. So that's why I say like that baseline of just having content is where you build your brand, your personal brand of what people know when they do a search for your name. I've said it before, like there's lots of hobbies that I have. I like music, I like movies, I like games, I like all sorts of different things. But my personal brand is tied to my business. And so that is, I view myself as a video marketing expert and social media strategist. Those are the things that I help people with. And so that's what it shows on my LinkedIn profile. And those are the things that I want to be known for from a business standpoint. So those are the things that I put out there. If most of my video content was about how much I like board games and they did a search and that my name came up, then that's the stuff that they would find out. And that's fair, but that's also, I can't expect people to hire me for video work when they come across me for
board games.
Right. And so, you know, for you've got a lot of different brands. You got Why Stuff Sucks. You've got your personal brand. There's a lot of side business that you do. We were literally talking the other day just about the necessity of having the hustle. And
Yeah.
why don't you talk a little bit about that of how managing all these different companies that you have?
Yeah, I think it's really important today, whether you're an entrepreneur or you just want to work for somebody, that's fine too, to have some sort of a side hustle, have other income streams, whatever that is. It might be selling something online. It might be walking dogs. Who knows? Like there's something that you can do that you're passionate about and you can do these other things because we can't count on our jobs. We can't always count on income in one particular business. Those things go up and down. Things change. We got to react to those in the market. And so for me, it's all about having some diversity. But for me, the thread through all of those is SEO. So I do SEO consulting. I have a business called Loop King Laces, which is premium shoelaces for sneakerheads. And then I have an affiliate WordPress plugin. Again, that ties into SEO and into just being able to make money online in different ways. And I use that plugin for several of my websites. So I just have found, and I think it's going to be increasingly important to have multiple income streams. Now, the challenge in having those multiple income streams is managing them all. So for me, I have a good support team. I have different people that help me administratively run certain, or operationally run certain parts of my business, because I can't be doing all of that, giving them direction and oversight and those sorts of things. But that's where systems and processes and people really will help you scale and be able to do more than one thing. Now, the other challenge is in the beginning, you may not have the money to hire those people, so you got to do some of that yourself. And I certainly have done my share of that, and to some extent still am. But you have to start somewhere, get it to a place where then you have to take that risk and hire other people to help you. Because if you don't, not only will you not grow, you'll actually start going backwards in most cases. There's a point at which you kind of got to take that leap and have other people help you.
Yeah, we were just shooting one of your shorts, and we were talking about, like, a tree never really stops growing. It grows and then it dies.
That's really true.
And it's really that way for business. That I know I made that mistake years ago where I was like, all right, I'm in a comfortable place.
Good.
I like where we're at. The business is solid. Everything's going good. I'm just like, let's just maintain it. And it's just not doable. Like maintaining.
Especially today with technology moving as fast as it is, it's more and more critical that you have to keep pushing and moving things forward and staying up with the market, or even trying to be on the bleeding edge of the market. Because if you don't, you will go backwards. You can't just say, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And I'm not saying you go in there and break everything, but you got to be trying to push things forward and looking for new ways to sell different products or services, or sell them to a different market. Because the nature of change is that it's going to destroy things. And you just don't want your whole to wake up one day and your whole business is destroyed because you've kind of been in maintenance mode, we'll call it.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, relevance isn't such an important word in business. And I think it's overlooked sometimes. It's like, what we've been doing worked. There's the analogy of sharpening a leather knife. Just because you can do that and you can get a piece of leather pretty sharp doesn't mean that's the best tool for cutting something. And a lot of businesses just kind of fall into that rut of well, this has worked super well for us for a long time. We should keep doing it. I was talking to one of our former clients, and they're talking all about the trade show stuff they've been doing, but they haven't really grown past that in years. They've just purely focused on that same that what's worked in the past, and so all of the modern ways of marketing, all the things that they could be doing and taking advantage of, it's just completely not a part of their business model. And I feel like I'm teaching an 80-year-old person that's never seen a computer how to use an iPad or something it's so foreign to them. Just even social media as a whole, we've been talking about in our Video Pathfinder webinar. One of the things I talk about is polished posts, and how so many businesses just stop there. They feel like that is effective social media content, and it looks pretty. It's got nice stock imagery, and it's got good typography, and it's designed by it says all the things that they care about in that post. And they think, great, we did social media. Yeah, it's super salesy.
We checked the box.
Exactly. And then you go to their page, and they've got 0 engagement, handful of followers, and they think that, all right, we're doing social media correct, because it's always done that. When we do those posts, they don't get engagement, but that's fine. That's just what happens when you put social media. Yeah, yeah. And it just amazes me that.
You know what it is? It's the difference between doing activity to check a box, like I said, or doing activity that's actually going to get results, and using data to vet that, and whether we got results or not, and what those metrics, what those goals are, and setting those at the outset.
And adapting to that change. I didn't touch short form content until maybe about 6 months ago. And I probably should have, but it was just, I didn't respect it because TikTok was stupid dancing people or whatever like that, and in my defense, when I first hopped onto, even when I first was like, I need to give this a serious, that's all that was thrown in my face, until I started like pushing through that and saying, I don't want to see that, I don't want to see that. And they finally started, well, what do you want to see? And the algorithm started showing me content that actually I was wrong with it. And I discovered there's a whole side of TikTok, which is great educational content and good information. And so I'm like, first of all, great. Now I can consume it and enjoy it. But then also I'm like, I need to be a content creator, and then recognizing the algorithm shift into that interest-based algorithm that we talk about so much on this channel. But how that type of content is where you're getting 5 to 10 times the organic reach with short form content today. But you and I have just talked about, like, you can't say, okay, I'm just going to switch all my gears into short form content, because we've also discovered that you typically don't get as much of a following from that. That you'll get more views, but those views typically aren't as high of an engagement. The longer form content are still our main video. I mean, we're doing a podcast right now. This is one of the shows that we do. We have others. We, at least at a bare minimum, we're trying to keep up on the podcast. Sometimes it's harder to always stay up on the other shows when we get busy. But at a bare minimum, like, this is important for us to have this content, because this is the stuff that people typically tend to actually follow a page for. They like, or they might come
stick
across
around for.
Yeah,
they come for the short form. They stick around for the long form.
Exactly. So it isn't that you can just put all your eggs in one basket and then move on from it. Like, you have to be looking at every facet of that marketing and then saying, what's the best way that we can incorporate it? And again, you're doing the exact same thing, where like, you realize that there was a need to step into short form content, and the idea of doing it completely on your own would have probably been too taxing and even like
overwhelming,
hard to even figure out where to start.
Yeah.
A lot of growing pains for some people is that it takes some months or years to get into a good format. And, we've been working hard at refining ours over the past several months to try and figure out what's worked best. And so, with the content that we're producing for you, it has a really good polish right off the bat, which I'm really excited for people to see when it comes out.
And the process is pretty streamlined.
Yeah, we've been able to do an entire month's worth of content in close to half a day at this point. So it's been really cool. And having our AR wall, that's just one fun tool to have, because then we can switch up the location, keep it fresh. We're always trying something new instead of it always being like the same office or the same whatever. And you'll do your wardrobe change, and we have a good old time. It's fun. But with all these marketing trends, are there other things, like, with the different brands that you have a car rental business, you have, Loop King Laces, which is like, seems like a jump in tone from some of your other brands. Sure. But, how do you have to approach each of those differently? I know for us, we've got Creative Edge, which is our video production and marketing agency. And then we have Edge VR, which is, Creative Edge B2B. Edge VR is B2C. So, like, for us, the marketing on both those are dramatically different. And for you, each of your brands probably have to have a different marketing approach as well.
They do, certainly B2B versus B2C. At the same time, the thread through all of those is still people. People buy people. So my B2B business, Why Stuff Sucks, the SEO consulting business, those are other businesses that are looking to buy my services, but they're still buying me. They're still buying a person. And so building that trust and those things, it's similar but different. So like the laces business, that's consumers, right? I'm selling directly to people who have certain pair of sneakers they want to dress up. So now the what's the word? It's just the approach is different, but the idea is the same. It's still people. I'm still selling to people. Ultimately, though, it's what are their needs, what do they want, and then where are they hanging out? So I know that sounds maybe overly simplistic for marketing, but it really is that simple, putting together a plan of trying to find where people are already hanging out that are likely interested in your products or services. And that could be the same channel, B2B versus B2C. It might be different, but I can promise you that the mix of those things that you're doing, whether it's video or email marketing or ads or SEO, any number of those things, that's going to be different for each of those businesses. And then within that, how much do you spend within those businesses? For me, I've got 4 businesses. I've got the SEO consulting, the car rental business, Laces business, and then the WordPress plugin. I have to ask myself and calculate, do some financial calculations every year. I have a certain amount of money I'm going to invest in each of those businesses to grow them. Where should I put most of my money? Where I'm going to get the most short or long-term value out of that. And so I have to constantly weigh those things. certainly the beginning of the year, but throughout the year as things unfold.
Now, some of those companies you started from scratch, like West
Two of them.
Sucks, right? And the other two you acquired. Like, what made you choose to go the route of acquiring other companies?
Yeah, so certainly pros and cons there. One of the big pros is that you've got an established income stream. Now, hopefully that previous owner has done well and that revenue is maintained when you take over it. You have to be careful about making too many changes right after you purchase a business. And part of this because you just don't know the business that well. Even though you might know some things about it, you haven't lived in it for a number of months. So, for me, it is the downside to buying a business is you have to give up some cash to take that over. But that's very different from starting something from scratch, which has a much higher rate of not working out, right, of going bust, versus something that has some life. It's green and growing. There's something already there that you can take and build on top of, rather than huge risk of something new may or may not work out, and I may lose all of my money.
So, did you know this company? Did you know this person prior to it, or was there like a broker that introduced you?
The two businesses I bought were through a broker. And so for me, that did a couple of things. One, I don't have a lot of time in my schedule. I have a lot of responsibilities, so I have to be very careful about how I spend my time so that I can not only do everything, but my businesses can grow. So for me, the broker is able to come in and vet those people, and then I can get in front of a certain people and I can look at those businesses that are available for sale. They're already emotionally ready, or mostly emotionally ready. Most founders or owners, it's their baby and they don't want to, it's hard to give it up. So they've already kind of gone through some of that, and the brokers help walk them through that, vet some of their financials, and it saves me a lot of time.
So what made you decide that this is a direction that you want to go? Was it the fact that you have experience with SEO and growth, and you felt like I can take a successful company and bring it to the next level? Was it just, I want to try something new?
There's a couple of things. Definitely that. Certainly the idea there was to take the SEO skills that I have, that I use for clients, and I still do, and leverage those in an even greater way that benefit me even more. The other part was I wanted to diversify a bit from what I'm doing. So my goal was not that I do less SEO consulting, but that as I continue to do the same amount of SEO consulting dollar-wise, my percentage of my income comes down. So that reduces my risk. And when I first started out, it was 100% of my business. I started the car rental, and then it became about 10% was the car rental and 90% consulting. And then from there, it's become 65% consulting, and the other 35% is made by the other three businesses. Keeping in mind that my goal was to keep the dollar amount of the consulting the same and just diversify that income. So it, not that anything's ever a sure thing, but it gives me a little bit more, if something goes wrong in one, I have some of the others to make up that slack.
Cool. Yeah, I know for us, like when we were starting the arcade, part of it was also just, it gave us an opportunity to kind of, quote unquote, put our money where our mouth is, and be able to test out marketing strategy for more than just marketing our own marketing company. There's something about like being able to market like a unique brand that's separate from that, that's consumer facing. Like for a video production company, it's high ticket, low volume. Yeah. And the arcade is higher volume, lower ticket. So like that just gave us an opportunity to try new things out that we couldn't, the marketing techniques we couldn't do, other than just helping our clients and working with them. What are some success stories though that you've had with some of your clients that are like, this was so cool. It was cool to be able to help them, guide them to that next level. Yeah.
I've had many successes, certainly some smaller like startup companies or even bigger companies. Can recall one recently, really took them from ground zero of SEO to significant SEO traffic and helping them grow their business. And it's really two scenarios. I either help somebody, and they may be small or big, doesn't really matter, or that doesn't matter, but they are really low when it comes to SEO, right? Or their authority and their ranking traffic is just either non-existent or almost. And so I love to see that growth, because that's, I think that's even harder to do when you're starting from nothing. The other scenario is taking somebody who already has a good amount of SEO traffic and growing that even higher. The thing I like about that is there's already something to build on, just like when I bought businesses. And then there's usually a lot of scalable strategies, because there's more there to work with that they already have, more website pages that are already ranking but could be ranking higher. And there's lots of different ways you can get in and scale those. So I too, like you mentioned earlier, like to take what I learned from my own businesses and marketing things I do with them SEO wise, and transplant them for my clients, or vice versa. And so for me, it just makes me, and you too, I'm sure, continually, you're just getting more and more experience, whether it's your own brands, your clients, and ultimately you become more successful and more valuable to other people.
There's a line from Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan where Kirk,
my favorite original Star Trek,
good movie, where Kirk is talking to Saavik and he says to her, "We learn by doing," and that line has just
So
been
true.
gnawing in the back of my head for so long, because it's a simple line. It's not like the most profound thing. It's not like Spock saying the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few or something like that. And it's not an often quoted thing, but that it's still, especially recently for me, the more marketing that I'm just kind of soaking it up right now. It's like, it's always something new to learn, and something new, like with AI or with a lot of these new tools that are available. But just learning it, just reading about it, just watching videos, just, getting a degree, whatever it might be, you still learn so much more by actually implementing it and trying it and testing it and failing. And then, you learn so much more by doing. And it's really fun to see those results happen firsthand.
Yeah, and I think some people, it's scary, and to some extent it's scary maybe to me at times, and maybe to you too, to think about all the things we got to learn and know and all that. But I agree. I think it's fun. There's great opportunity in that, and you're absolutely right. There's a huge difference, like at least 10x, maybe more, between getting some head knowledge about SEO or video marketing and actually doing it and having done it over and over and over. That's a huge difference. So usually when I come in, I'm able to help writers in particular level up their skills. Not that they're necessarily bad writers; they're probably good, persuasive, writers. But there's so much there that because of the experience I have, both writing so much over so many industries and editing so many people, that I can help, guide them and help them move forward at a much faster pace than I would otherwise.
All right, so this is the Mastering Video Marketing podcast. Do you have any video marketing SEO tips at all that you could drop on us?
Yes. Well, that's a good question. And think about Google is certainly the number one search engine. YouTube is number 2 search engine, period, not just video search engine. So, and that's definitely by design. I mean, Google bought YouTube a number of years ago for that reason, because they strategically wanted it. I think some of the things are different. There's some similarities between the two. Keywords certainly help, but are not as important as engaging with people and keeping people on their dwell time and watching, through more of the video, certainly all the way to the end, ideally, and keeping people on there, because YouTube wants people to stay on that platform as much as possible, and people continue to consume their videos and watch their ads, because that's how they make their money.
Exactly. And we've talked about before, like how each platform's a little different, the way that what a person expects out of a platform. Like when you go on YouTube, people are there typically almost like a Netflix in their approach, where it's like, I want to watch a thing. Maybe I'm searching and hunting for it, but once I've selected a video, I want to watch that video. So an ad is delaying my ability to watch it. So your ad, first of all, needs to be super engaging if you expect anybody to sit through and watch it. But then also, we find that like call to action ads don't perform as well on YouTube as opposed to other platforms like Facebook. Brand awareness is usually a better campaign to go with on YouTube, just because people tend to not click ads as often. Yeah. But again, call to action ads on like consumers, when they're going on Facebook, they're more in a discovery mode. They're they're there because they're just like, what's going on?
cool?
Let's see what's happening. And so when an ad pops up of something that they could genuinely be interested in, hey, maybe this is something that I might want to watch. And so in that regard, call to action ads tend to work a bit better on Google or on Facebook. And so that's typically why we encourage those, like, whether it could be a direct response, like go buy a widget off our website, or like a lead generation, any of those types of things tend to perform much better on Facebook. Do you have any?
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, you go ahead.
I was just going to say, what the common theme of all those is? It's what matters to that person on that platform.
Yeah. And trying to do a blanket approach to all of your advertising identically on each of them is just a surefire way to not have success at all. Because like you have to kind of see what consumer patterns are. What I find more interesting is also how, like on LinkedIn, for example, you would think, oh, LinkedIn's a great business profile. I've heard some people have better success with their content, like getting clients and stuff like that on TikTok than on LinkedIn, because
people are not expecting it. Maybe.
Well, LinkedIn. The problem is a lot of times LinkedIn, the people going to LinkedIn are the people trying to sell their services on LinkedIn. A lot of people go there to talk, and not a lot of people go there to listen. But people that aren't content creators first and foremost necessarily, that are going to TikTok are there to consume. So when they see content that's relevant to them, that's interesting to them, they could be a teenager, or they could be a 50-year-old CEO of a company. You don't know. And I've just seen a lot of more business or stories of business success come from TikTok than from LinkedIn at this point. Again, not saying that you can't use it. It's just, you also got to recognize that a lot of people it's like we talked about with networking events, where some of the hesitations or problems I've had with networking events in the past is just there's a lot of people there to talk and nobody's there to listen. And in some of the shorts that you've been producing, which people get to hear soon, you mentioned like the importance of when you're networking, you need to actually
them,
exactly,
not us.
Yeah, and that's the mistake that people make, is where they're like, what can I get out of this networking event?
Right.
And if you do that, you just might as well just turn right back and get in your car and leave, because it's just not going to work. So if you can genuinely have an approach of like, how can I help? And that's honestly how you should be approaching all of your content creation.
Any marketing.
Yeah.
You really approaching it with them first, what's in it for them, rather than what I'm trying to sell. And I know that seems counterintuitive, like that yes, we do have something to sell. It isn't that we're doing this podcast for no reason at all other than we like talking to each other. Although I do like talking to you, but so that is still the fundamental thing, but the approach is that it's about them and not about us. And in doing that, we set ourselves apart, because most everybody else is doing that thing. They're trying to sell, and online, that's getting harder and harder to do. Think about in the early days, the ad platforms and even SEO, it was easier because people weren't conditioned to the always selling, always pitching. And I'll admit it's hard sometimes. We're trying to run businesses, we're trying to grow sales. I mean, that's what business is for, right? But the more we pull that back and really lean into how can we help, and not leading with selling, either we sell them or we build a friendship, we build a relationship that's going to help us down the road, and we'll be able to help them. And at the end of the day, this is all about relationships.
Exactly. And I'll end it with this. A lot of people think marketing is selling or getting your product and service in front of people. But the best definition that I've ever heard of marketing is simply where you are helping people solve a problem by reaching them where they're at. Yeah. And both of those things are important, that you are helping them solve a problem. So that's really what your product or service needs to do. The only way somebody buys a thing is if it meets a need or solves a problem that they have. That's it. There's no other really solution to why somebody would part with the dollar bills that are in their pocket. It needs to genuinely be worth more to me than the money that I have. And again, meeting them where they're at. So being relevant to the platform that they're on, whatever it might be, whether it's social media, television, traditional media, whatever it might be, that you are then being relevant on that platform and properly utilizing it and meeting people where they're at. Again, so, with Loop King Laces for you, there's your ideal target audience on there is going to be different and in consuming different content and being in different places than maybe your SEO business. And you need to be making sure that you are reaching them where they're at, of course. Yeah.
And it's really, it is about reaching them where they're at, and it's less about convincing them. So I think and again, it's an area that I struggle with at times too. We're trying to convince them through our marketing to do this. We should just be in the right place at the right time and have given away enough value that they're like ecstatic and thrilled. They're like, take my money, please. Here's my money. I need what you have. And they're selling us rather than we're selling them.
The best marketing campaigns are when people literally are like sending them to each other on Messenger or email, or like, you got to see this. This looks amazing. I'm like, that's what you should be striving for. If you can create content and marketing content that is that engaging and that solving that much of a need, and it's entertaining and it's interesting
and authentic, because it has to deliver on that promise. You can't just have a bunch of fluff that gets people's attention and then not deliver when it comes to the sale. So don't forget about that part too. Got to keep that in mind.
Absolutely. All right. Well, this has been fun. Now it's time to talk about. Thanks.
Amazingly fun.
Yes. But I want to talk about, this is our pop culture corner where we talk about movies, TV shows, things that we've been consuming lately. I have been hooked on Star Trek Picard season 3. We talked a little bit about Star Trek earlier. I know that you're a Next
Generation
fan. Yep.
Is the best.
Yep. I do like the original series movies. Like from an era standpoint, that was my strongest one for a long time. I love Next Gen. I love Deep Space Nine.
Yeah.
I enjoy Voyager too. But like those are some of my favorites. And, modern Trek has been kind of going in every other direction except continuing that story. And even season 1 and 2 of Picard, in as much as like there's some people that hated it. I didn't hate it, but
you like 3 better than 1 and 2.
Well, 1 and 2, I almost joke like it felt like The Mandalorian in how like it was telling this side story over here, which I was fine with. But I was also starved for give me what I liked about Next Gen and DS9 in that era. And they not only did that, but they also did it in a way that kind of combined the tone and feel of the original series movie. So we just talked about like Star Trek 2, Star Trek 3, like that era of Trek where it wasn't just, it did just that matter have Kirk and Spock, but they also like had like a nautical swashbuckling feel to it that a lot of modern Trek has been trying to replicate Star Wars, which is fine. Like I like rapid space battles and zippy ships and all. That's fine, but I do also like when the Enterprise is coming out of space dock and it's slow and beautiful and majestic, like, and the music is swelling and you got the James Horner score going and it's just epic. That's cool too. And you can definitely tell that Terry Matalas, the showrunner of Star Trek Picard season 3, loved that era of Trek too, because he's like married the two together. So you have the Next Gen characters and that era. I'll
have to watch it because I've only seen season 1. So now you've piqued my curiosity.
Dude, if you love it, I'm super excited. A lot of people there are people that have seen, they did the 2-episode premiere for those that were able to attend it, and then they released the first 6 episodes to a bunch of press, and then there were some influencers that were able to get a hold of all 10. And so far, everybody that has seen either the first 6 or the first 10 or all 10 have said that. I've heard people say it's the best season of Star Trek ever.
Wow,
I've seen that.
That's high praise.
Everyone that has seen has said that it's the best Trek that we've had in like 20 years. So across the board, I'm going
to go home and watch it tonight.
Good. I'm just loving it. I really do. Like the composer brought back the James Horner and the Jerry Goldsmith scores. Like it feels like everything, a mishmash of the modern Trek in its, the visual style. It feels like you're watching a movie. Like there's no compromise in like, oh, there was the TV shows,
Right.
and then the movies look like this, and the TV. No, they've really married the visual aesthetic of the two. Some complain that it's a little dark and moody, whatever. I'm a cinematographer. I love
dark and moody at times.
Drama and lighting is nice. So I'll let that slide. But that score, the tone, that just everything about it. There's a moment in the second episode where there's just a moment between these two characters and there's no dialogue. It's just they're looking at each other. They haven't seen each other in years, and all of a sudden, I'm not going to spoil it. I'm going to let you see it. But it's so like the score swells, and it's like, oh my gosh, they're doing it. They're doing it
without any speech.
It's really, really, really good. So, I could gush about Picard. I'm just glad to be excited about Trek again. It's not that I hated the other shows. I like Discovery is a hit or miss. I did enjoy Strange New Worlds, but the problem I've had with a lot of modern Trek is it's very casual in the way that in the demeanor, the vocabulary. What's the word I'm looking for? Where that just how they talk and how they speak and interact with each other. They're very modern in their. Well, so you watch Next Gen. You remember Barkley?
Yeah.
And how he kind of stammered and that kind of stuff. Like
There's
almost
some depth
half of the characters in Discovery kind of have this kind of twitchy, stutteriness to them. And it's not that I'm not.
It was
against
overdone.
That. It's just it's overdone in their like trying to be relevant. Like there's something
They're
to be
trying
said.
too hard.
Sure, yeah. Like you think about Riker and Picard and Worf and like
Data.
all these characters, like they had a professionalism to them, and it was like, oh, these are legit people that should be doing their jobs. And in Discovery, it's just kind of like, yeah, just another funny, wacky person.
Too relatable. Too.
Yeah. And in Strange New Worlds, I think it's a little bit better. Like Anson Mount is really good, but it's still a little casual overall, fundamentally. And in Picard season 3, they kind of brought back like from the score standpoint, just the hero ship of season 3 is the Titan. And when it leaves space dock, there all the language is there, like headquarter or 1/2 thrusters ahead, mooring clamps released, like the whole verbiage that it's just like, oh, go ahead,
engage.
Yeah, exactly. It just sounds like Trek again. And the dialogue is professional, and the people are not sounding like a bunch of teenagers, whatever. So that I've enjoyed, and I'm hoping that I'm really hoping that Terry Matalas gets to do more Trek because this is a guy that loves Trek. He's kind of like almost the Jon Favreau of Star Trek right now, where he got thrown into a position, got a chance to do a thing, loved the source material so much that he then did the best. He just approached it like, if this is the only thing I ever get to do, if this is the last time we ever see the Next Gen characters, what would be the last movie that we never got? That Nemesis kind of was like this cutoff point because it didn't perform super well, and there was some more stories they wanted to tell, but they just stopped because it was no longer profitable. And so, yeah, he's done a great job. Anything that you've been watching recently? Any shows, movies?
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I've been watching Father Brown. I don't know if you've ever
tell me about that.
Heard of that show?
I haven't.
It's about a Catholic priest who lives in England, in Campbellford. I don't know if that's a real town or not, or if it's a made-up one, but he helps the local police there solve different crimes. And so it's a really interesting blend of both faith and also an excellent murder mystery. And every episode, there's always somebody getting murdered or some weird way and some interesting plot line that totally captures my attention.
Nice. Were you ever a fan of like Diagnosis Murder and those types of shows back in the day?
Sort of.
Okay.
Not quite as diehard as I am of this one. This one, season 10, it just came out a few weeks ago. So I've been binge watching all those episodes. So
nice. Cool. Any movies that you've seen recently?
Yes, I'm just trying to think of some. I saw Black Panther. I enjoyed that. That is different than the first one, Definitely, yeah. It pays homage to the first one, and I think they did a great job. But there is something still missing, I feel like, because he was so good at that role. And it's just hard to replicate that. I think it's impossible. I think they did a great job at paying homage to that, but it's still hard. It's not quite the same as if we'd had a part 2 with him.
Yeah. And I'm glad that they took it the direction that they did, that they didn't just straight like recast him or something like that.
I totally agrry.
I
And
agree.
then his son and everything, that whole, I'm going to spoil it for anybody if you haven't seen it, but it's well done.
Yeah.
It's well done.
Yeah, that one was kind of, I don't know, that was hit or miss for me in certain regards. Like, I know it was really well reviewed, and I guess I kind of went in with higher expectations, and then I
had low expectations because T'Challa's not there, so I was
sure, that's fair. Namor was this kind of sympathetic villain, kind of like what's his?
Do you not like that? Look, my wife doesn't like the tragic backstory that every villain seems to have in the Marvel.
I like a
universe
relatable villain. I like that their motivations are realistic and, I don't want to say grounded, but just like not so way off the chain.
Not kooky.
This
not
doesn't
Joker.
Why are you pissed off? Don't be pissed. You're stupid. That's stupid. So yeah, I do. I'm fine with that.
I will agree with you in one regard, or maybe this is where you're going. I do think Marvel has lost a lot of steam over the years. And I think because of their, this is my theory, because of their budgets and their largesse, they have drifted afield from the core of what they did. And I don't think it's near as good. Most of the stuff they're putting out now, the second Doctor Strange, the latest Thor, they all fall far short, in my opinion, of what they've done previously.
The latest Doctor Strange, I liked for what it was. And I had enough background to know, 100% know exactly what I was getting in for. And that, for me, is about the amount of horror that I'm willing to consume. I'm not a big horror fan, but that was about the right amount. Like, I like Stranger Things, and again, that's kind of right up against my threshold of just what I enjoy consuming. And so Doctor Strange, I was fine with it. I agree. Thor was too tonally all over the place.
Yeah.
That was
like caricature. Like, I felt like the whole thing was very mockery almost.
It's tough to say. Was that purely because Taika Waititi was given too much freedom, or because they just weren't quite sure what to do with the character, or they were trying to shove too many things into it? Because they chose to do the Mighty Thor, with Jane Foster,
Right.
and they wanted to incorporate the cancer story of it. Then it was like, well, that's a heavy subject. And then they also but Ragnarok did really well, so we need to also have that
funny
coming. Yeah. And then we want to have Gore the God Butcher, who's a very dark villain, and you have all these
who I
juxtapositions.
thought was played very well, by the way.
And we just didn't get a chance to give him enough. Like, you got the God Butcher, maybe have him butcher some gods. Like, you get the one scene where he cuts a guy's throat, and then we hear about him doing a bunch of stuff. But it's but that's the thing. Whatever. Anyways, I haven't seen Quantumania. I know that's been poorly reviewed, so I'm keeping my expectations in check. A lot of people are saying
all of my expectations are low for Marvel right now. For me.
I like what they did for the whole multiverse breaking thing, though. I will say that, where it all, instead of it being with the Infinity Stones, you could almost say the multiple Infinity Stones were introduced, not all of them, but most of them were introduced throughout a handful of different movies, and so there was a build-up. And with the multiverse stories, they basically have said, essentially, that the multiverse was broken in all these different positions. So it was broken when Loki destroyed the TVA. It was broken when Wanda, did the America Chavez. It was broken with Spider-Man and Doctor Strange were doing the thing. There's all these multiple points where the multiverse kept cracking and breaking. And so instead of it being this one thing that broke it, it was a combination of all these different things, which I like. I like that they tied it in, and then really whose fault was it? Was it one person's fault? No, it was a bunch of people's fault. So I think that's neat. I think it's all about sticking the landing. Coming back to Picard, season 1 and 2 were rough, but assuming that everybody's right that's seen it, and season 3 is amazing all the way through. There's only 2 episodes out at the time of our podcast recording, so I'm just enjoying watching them 1 week at a time and really water cooling the conversation and just enjoying it. But anyways, if they stick the landing, I'm cool with everything else that happened. You know, even if because again with Next Gen, there are some rough episodes in Next Gen, but
the overall
all good things was great, like everything
amazing.
exactly. So I look back at like The Force Awakens. The Force Awakens set up something that could have been great for all its imperfections and everything like that. If they stuck the landing, I would have been fine with it, but they didn't, and that makes The Force Awakens worse because of it. Because all The Force Awakens did is undermine now Episode 6. Episode 6, they defeated the Emperor, and Darth Vader sacrificed himself, and Luke, everything happened. Everybody, all these sacrifices that were made, except that they didn't, and that there's the First Order, and none of that really mattered. And there was literally, it like undermines everything that they did. But it was like, okay, but if they stuck the landing, if it was all worth it, and like this really, but it wasn't. It was just became comical at the end of it. So again, if we've got, they've already said that the next Avengers movies that won't be coming out for a while is there's the Kang Dynasty, I think is the last one. Then there's like a Secret Wars or something like that that's going to be in there. Again, if those are amazing, because like Endgame, I loved Endgame. They did a good job. Like some people say Infinity War is better than Endgame. What I like about Endgame more than Infinity War is that it just worked. It stuck the landing. And yeah, that's it for me. Like I will say, my favorite Marvel movie right now is still Iron Man, just because it's the beginning of the journey of all of them. Just because I love
all 3 of them.
No, just the first one. Just if you had to pick one movie, it's just because at that point it was just like this guy builds a crazy suit, and it was like almost tangible.
Yeah.
And now it's so all over the place. So whatever. Okay, but at that moment it was like just like, oh, we're almost there. We could do that, man. Somebody could build an Iron Man suit, right? Like it's not that far off.
It could happen.
Yeah, and now we're like
maybe
aliens
it has happened.
and multiverses and all crazy stuff. It's I'm okay with where they're going for it if they stick to landing. Even for me, like Lord of the Rings, favorite trilogy, Lord of the Rings. Fellowship is still my favorite. Some people it's Return of the King. For me, it's Fellowship because it's like we're going on an adventure. It's the beginning, and just like starting in Hobbiton and just the flutes and everything. It's just like I know it's going to come. I know the big adventure that's going to come, but I just love that beginning of that feeling of just getting going on that adventure. So, but yes, if they don't stick the landing, then the first, second, everything is completely ruined for me. So I'll be curious to see what they do. And that's why I say, like, I keep my mind open because, again, like for every bad episode of Next Gen, there's 5 good ones at least. And again, they stuck the landing so well that like I can just let those ones go. And because of the fact that, again, they kind of intertwined them well, I like that the series were allowed to breathe a little bit. The fact that like Wanda and WandaVision was such a wacky out there show. And what I respect about the Marvel, at least the shows, the movies to a certain extent, they've kind of gotten out of this. There was that golden era right after Avengers where we had like Winter Soldier and Ant-Man, where, okay, Winter Soldier is like a spy thriller, and then Ant-Man is like a heist movie, and then we had, then Ragnarok came around, and it was like a buddy road trip kind of really, fundamentally tonally. And so you had these different genre films that were happening in the same universe.
Together.
Like think about like Star Wars. One of the reasons people are getting so burnt out on Star Wars for a while was because the movies were tonally the same over and over and over again. And you can't just keep spitting out the same tonal movie and expect your audience to just constantly want that. There are some that will, but you'll burn out on it. So Marvel did a good job at that time, and that's why, again, like I felt Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness being more of a horror film was like, okay, this is the first horror film in the Marvel movie. I don't prefer horror films, but I'm glad that there's this variety in it. Now, Thor, had it been a better version of it, was back to having a comedy, but then you have things like Black Panther that's just straight up superhero movie. It's not really that, like they could have maybe, but like even Spider-Man coming of age, and even like Miss Marvel's coming of age, and even like Hawkeye, which some people like, some people didn't.
It's kind of 50-50 on
it
that
was,
for me.
but it was kind of like it was like the Home Alone of the of the Marvel universe. So it was like this Christmas comedy action-y movie, which again, like you could define as Home Alone. So it was interesting that they've been doing that, and I respect them for that, because they're
taking risks.
Well, and that's honestly one of the
complacent.
things I probably love the most about Star Trek is that, and one of the hardest things about modern Trek, except for Strange New Worlds, is that by not being episodic and being more serialized in their storytelling, they have to keep telling tonally the same episode. Yeah. Versus, again, in Next Gen, you could have a comedy episode one week, and then you could have a thriller episode or a mystery episode, or even like there's a handful of horror episodes in there. And it was like an anthology almost of thing. And how many shows get the opportunity to do that? Like very few. They're most of the time, like you watch like Law and Order or CSI, like they're not hopping around tone every single week. It's I like this, give me more of that. So I respect Marvel for that, and that's probably my favorite thing about them, is that they've been able to jump around that. Some of them are more miss than hit for me, but I would rather have that difference, because again, some of the Star Wars shows, they started to do it with like The Mandalorian, and then I will say probably my favorite. I thought Mandalorian was my favorite of the Star Wars shows, but Andor has probably been my favorite.
I've really enjoyed that as well.
But at the same time,
I'm looking forward to the Mandalorian coming back up.
Sure,
too.
I'm looking forward to that.
We'll see.
But in as much as I liked Andor, I really did. It's funny because like my criticism for modern Star Wars has been that they kept like making it dark. It's almost like the kid that watched Star Wars as a kid, that say like he was like 6 years old and he watched the original Star Wars, or maybe even let's say Empire Strikes Back. And in Empire Strikes Back, you've got Han Solo gets frozen in carbonite, and Darth Vader takes over. Like towards the end of the movie, it's the dark, the dip in the trilogy of sorts. As a kid, you could watch that and go, "Oh my gosh, that was so heavy and deep and everything like that." And then like that kid grows up, and then his tastes mature, and so he's like, "I want that same feeling as an adult." So now I need to inject a darker energy and a heavier energy into modern storytelling. And so when you've got like, again, the sequel films where it's like, oh my gosh, they're kind of depressing at moments. Like they've got their fun energy, but then they're really heavy. And so that was like, for me, Star Wars was just kind of this, fun space adventure where like, wacky,
it is
wacky people. And that's what I perceived it as. And so like as they tried to make it more and more mature, I was just like, all right,
Again, they're trying too hard.
and so like the thing that I fault them for is what I like about Andor, because Andor was like almost like 4 different genres in one show. You start off as like a murder mystery, man, or what's the word I'm looking for? Like a like an escape convict.
Manhunt?
Yeah, Manhunt. Thank you, Manhunt. So first parts of it, the Manhunt, and then it hard lefts into like a heist period, and then it's like this psychological thriller right in the middle there with the prison scene, and then towards the end it's again more of like a military World War II almost, like it was like 4 different genres in one thing, and I'm like, this works somehow, it's amazing, and it works. Again, going almost back to Star Trek, where it was like, they changed tones. It's one of the few shows I've ever seen that kids like changed tones that dramatically and made it work. Because when we got to the prison scene, I'm like, what is going on?
That was pretty intense.
It was super intense. And it was awesome. And it was like, that made the Empire actually like feel evil. Like, okay, they blew up a planet, in the first movie. That's bad, but it's not practical.
It's not enslaving people.
Well, it's like, it's so sensational. It's like, like the atomic bomb or something like that. Like, it's hard for me at a functional level to really even fathom the extremeness of the atomic bomb. But seeing like one per child starving or something like that, that could impact me 10 times more. And so seeing that in that prison scene, I was like, oh my gosh, okay, now they finally made the Empire like feel evil.
Mm-hmm.
After it's already been destroyed, so it deflates it a little bit, but you know, it is like going, okay, I'll say this as we close. I'm sorry. You got me on a rant, but like that, I always joke, like the problem with Star Wars for me is it's like, let's imagine that we're telling the story of Earth. And we decide as storytellers, we're going to tell like the story of World War II. There's a lot of conflict there, you know, like it affected almost the entire planet. You had like a really hard evil that everybody was against. Okay, great. So we told that story. We told that in a trilogy. Now let's tell about like what happened right before World War II. Let's talk about what happened right after. And let's talk about like in the middle of world. And then it's just like, oh my gosh, there's more stories to tell on Earth. Like this, talk about something else. But like it's not. Right. We got to keep coming back to World War II because that's the only story that we could ever possibly tell about Earth. And that's kind of what I feel about the Star Wars universe. It's like I was really excited about Mandalorian. And then they just threw Luke Skywalker, and they're like, "Can you just tell one story that's not about Luke Skywalker, right. Please? Like come on,
anything, please,
just please." As like in Andor, like if they can go the entire series without, like the whole series without pulling out a lightsaber, I'll be super happy. And it's not that I hate lightsabers; it's just that like every time you do that, you make your universe smaller.
Yeah,
in my opinion, because it's like there's more to it. Like it's not just Jedi, it's not just the Force. Like that whole universe it's like has the potential to have all these different stories, but they always gotta like tie it back into the. I don't know. Do you feel that way, or am I just way off base? Are you a person that is fine with that?
No, I just hate Jar Jar Binks. Okay. But other than that, I'm mostly okay with Star Wars.
All right. And I mean, I guess I could argue the same thing. Is like, you know, it's like they haven't really told the story that isn't Starfleet in Star Trek.
Yeah.
But they have hopped around timelines a ton in Trek.
A lot.
And I guess my point in that is like if every story they had to tell was with Kirk and Spock, it's like eventually now they've brought back Spock a ton, for sure. Like he's like been rebought in the J.J. Abrams things, and Strange New Worlds, like and even Discovery. Like I feel like they've been overusing Spock for sure. But yeah, it's just you can leave Luke Skywalker out of something. It's okay. There's other people too. I just feel it makes the universe that much smaller when they do that. But anyways, lots of good TV.
Absolutely.
And
more to come.
Yep. So this was a fun rant. Hopefully you'll come back. We got more shorts to shoot. So I'm sure that we'll get you back on the show sometime. So
I'd enjoy that.
Thanks so much for coming, Miles.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Tony.
Thanks for listening, everybody.